Mom, help me. A faint voice from my son's wife came through the small window, as if it might vanish any moment. She was desperately using her last strength, hitting the bathroom door repeatedly, begging me for help. Feeling an ominous chill from her voice, barely audible over the wind, I quickly used my spare key to enter the house. I realized the voice was coming from a small window in the bathroom near the entrance, so I immediately opened the door. What? What happened here? The sight that met me was so gruesome and terrifying that I almost collapsed in shock. Though it was already spring season, the mornings and evenings can get chilly, and my daughter-in-law was there lying on the bathroom floor completely naked. Her hands and feet were tightly bound with thick ropes, leaving her unable to move. I hurriedly untied her and tried to cover her with towels to warm her up. How could this happen? Later, when I heard what she told me, I was in complete shock. It was an inhumane and brutal crime committed by two people. I never thought those two could do this. They both betrayed our trust and love, committing cruel acts for their own satisfaction, and should be punished by the law, even if we're all related. The love and trust that is supposed to last forever. Everything I cherished shattered in an instant, turning everything into anger and hatred. And then, I slowly stood up. Clutching in my hands, a one-way ticket to hell for two. My name is Sarah. I got married in my early 20s and had my son, Ryan. My married life was supposed to be full of happiness, but it quickly crumbled due to my husband's infidelity. My husband neglected our family, doesn't contribute financially, and eventually started the habit of coming home drunk, yelling at me and our son. I chose to leave him out of fear. Of course, I didn't receive a cent in alimony, nor did I get child support or any financial help. Still, I was determined to raise my son right, so I started working in the beauty industry as an apprentice, throwing myself into the job. After years of hard work, I successfully launched my own business, becoming the president of a company dealing with shampoos, hair treatments, and various hair care products. Our clients include renowned salons, spas, and luxury department stores across the country. Our revenue rivals that of IPO companies, but we still operate out of a small office building, and we don't have a large staff. Even as the CEO, I still head out every day for sales meetings. No matter how much our sales increase, my approach to business hasn't changed. I believe in hearing customers' feedback personally and directly being involved in sourcing and developing good products myself. At home, I did my best to raise my son, but I'm sure he felt lonely at times due to how busy I was with work. His rebellious phase was difficult to handle, and I'm sure our clashes were more intense compared to other families. Still, the love I gave Ryan is immeasurable. No matter what happens, I was always there to support him. After graduating high school, my son decided to work, though he struggled to find a job. Luckily, one of my business partners, a salon owner, took him in as an apprentice. He began studying every day, working towards being a licensed hairstylist. A few years later, he took and passed the exam with flying colors and began his career as a hairstylist. The day finally came when he would leave my care and stand on his own. Mom, thank you for everything. I know I caused a lot of trouble, but from now on, I'll do my best on my own. I'll never forget the determined look on his face at that moment. And so, I watched him leave the house with tears in my eyes. A few years after Ryan became independent, I'm still caught up in my busy schedule. Every night when I come back home, I'd call out, "I'm home," even though I knew no one was there. It was these moments that reminds me how I missed the days my son was still living with me. One night, I got a call from someone I didn't expect and I hurried to answer it. "Mom, it's been a while. How are you?" It was my son. Hearing his voice that still sounds the same, brought me a sense of peace. "I'm doing well. Ryan, are you eating properly?" A simple mother-son conversation began. Then, "Mom, I really want to tell you something important. I'm getting married." I nearly jumped out of my seat. "What? You're getting married? But you guys haven't even been dating for a year, and Ryan, you've just started your career as a full-fledged hairstylist." Ryan's partner is someone I know very well. Her name is Emily, and she works for me as one of my subordinates. 6 years ago, she came to our company for a job interview right after graduating middle school. Having lost her parents at a young age and raised by her ailing grandmother, she decided to work right after finishing middle school. She wanted to earn money to provide for her grandmother with advanced treatment and good care, so she came to our company looking for a job. I still remember the determined look in her eyes during the interview. She was determined to succeed, make her grandmother's life easier, and study hard to earn certifications, overcoming her lack of education background. I was deeply moved by her passion and decided to hire her. After joining the company, she approached her work with unexpected enthusiasm, learning the ropes of the business right under me, and continued studying beauty on her own. Her efforts paid off, and she became one of our top 3 sales representatives, now even mentoring junior employees. I came to trust her deeply, and she became like a daughter to me. I would often take her out for meals and keep track of her grandmother's health. She and my son didn't meet through me, instead they met during her sales rounds. She happened to be assigned to the salon where Ryan was working, they naturally grew close and eventually ended up dating. She has no idea and later found out that Ryan and I were related. Now they're getting married. I have nothing against their relationship, there's nothing more joyful and celebratory than this. I'm honestly happy for both of them, but something still bothers me. It's my son. It was just a few years ago, when my son became independent and has worked hard as a hairstylist, but does he make enough to support a family? Even though they'll both be working, they're still only in their early 20s. They haven't even dated for a year. Is there really a need to rush into marriage? I carefully chose my words and expressed my feelings to my son. But he brushed off my concerns, saying, "I want to be a young parent like you were, Mom." He completely dismissed my worries. I've never spoken to anyone about the struggles of getting married and getting divorced at a young age, but I thought he'd learned from watching me. I'll drop by soon with Emily, so get ready for a special dinner. In the end, my words didn't reach him, and he hung up. A few days later, still unable to shake my worries, I welcomed both of them into my home. But my son, bringing his fiancée with him, surprised me in the best possible way. He was wearing a tie, his hair neatly styled, and he had become such a fine man, escorting her like a true gentleman. Emily was walking beside him, smiling happily. Without me realizing it, my son had grown into a respectable adult. Seeing them like that, I couldn't help but give them my blessing. I decided to support their decision wholeheartedly. In this way, I gained complete trust in my son, and they became husband and wife. After becoming my daughter-in-law, Emily promised that she would dedicate herself even more to her work and became an even more valuable employee. My son also became more ambitious at his salon, gaining client requests and steadily climbing the ladder as a hairstylist. Their marriage was heading in a positive direction. I was certain of it, and I never doubted it for a moment. A few months later, Ryan called me with another surprise. "We want to buy a house to prepare for our future." Surprised by his words, my son calmly continued talking. "Our current apartment is far from Emily's work, right? So, we thought about moving somewhere nearer. And if we're going to move, buying a house might be better for the future than renting." I understand what he was saying, but buying a house is completely different than buying a pair of sneakers. It goes with a lot of responsibility like the mortgage approval, down payments, taxes, insurance, and other expenses. It all adds up to a lot of money. I understand where you're coming from, but both of you are still young. Don't you think getting a house should be better after you have kids? I couldn't hide my concerns at my son's impulse. I've heard it's better to buy young and pay off the loan early. Plus, who knows if we'll find a good house when we have kids. It turns out, he already had a house in mind. From what he told me, it's a house in the suburbs, with good security, and as a parent, I wanted to support them. That's all and good, but do you have the budget for it? That was my biggest concern. We have some savings, but Mom, I think you could help us out a little? Of course, as a parent, I already plan to give them some money as a gift for their house, but in this case, it looks like they will need a larger amount with Ryan's plans. Also, since Emily doesn't have parents, I'm likely the only person they can rely on. In the end, considering they'd need to buy furniture and other things, I ended up paying a lot more than I have planned. My daughter-in-law thanked me repeatedly. She's very happy about everything I did for them. As a parent, I wanted to help them have a happy life together. With the house and everything in it, I thought that's it. Now, I also occasionally help them out with living expenses. Part of it was the guilt I carried for raising my son without a father. It seemed that Ryan and Emily are living a smooth married life, and we'd often laugh together at work over the happy stories my daughter-in-law would tell. I could have never imagined back in his rebellious teenage years that my son would marry such a responsible woman. As I felt overwhelming gratitude for my son, who had grown into such a fine man, and the joy of my past struggles finally being rewarded, I suddenly felt as if a great weight had been lifted off my shoulders. My job as a parent was finished. But just a few weeks later, something so heinous and cruel happened. It changed everything I thought I have accomplished. It was a Monday, right after the weekend. While preparing for a meeting, I was informed that my daughter-in-law hadn't shown up for work yet. I jokingly thought maybe she had overslept after having too much fun over the weekend, expecting her to arrive soon. However, when the meeting started, Emily is nowhere to be found. She had never been late before, so I began to worry that she might have been in an accident on her way. I tried calling her, but there was no answer. I couldn't sit still any longer, so I rushed out of the office and drove straight to my son's house. The front of their house was eerily quiet. There was no sign of anyone around. I rang the doorbell just in case, but there was no response. "Emily, are you there?" As I continued to ring the doorbell, I thought I heard a voice coming from somewhere. No way. Thinking it was just my imagination, I was about to head back to my car when, "Mom. Mom, help me." It was a faint woman's voice. It was so soft it could have been drowned out by the wind, but I heard it clearly. I know that voice, it's Emily's voice. As I listened closely, the voice seemed to be coming from a small, slightly open window inside the house. Panicking, I quickly took out the spare key and entered the house. The house was dark and eerily quiet, with no sign of anyone around. The voice seemed to be coming from a small window in a room near the entrance, likely the bathroom. Hoping it was just my imagination, I suppressed my fear and nervously reached for the bathroom door. The sound of the doorknob turning echoed, and I slowly opened the door. What? What happened here? Beyond the door, a scene of unimaginable horror unfolded before my eyes. I lost all my strength, almost collapsing onto the floor in shock. What in the world happened? "Mom, please help me." My daughter-in-law, desperately calling out to me for help. Shockingly, she was completely naked, her hands and feet tightly bound with thick ropes, unable to move. Her hands were also tied to a towel holder, making it impossible for her to escape from the bathroom. This is horrible. I untied her hands and feet, grabbed several towels from the laundry room, and wrapped her body in them. It looks like she's been in this situation for days already, and she probably hadn't had any water for days. Her breathing was unsteady, and she was severely weakened. I considered calling an ambulance, but with the hospital nearby, I decided it'd be faster to take her myself. I dressed her, helped her into the car, and drove quickly to the hospital. Thanks to this, she was able to receive immediate treatment at the hospital and avoided the worst outcome. I sat down on a chair outside the completely dazed. Ever since I found my daughter-in-law, I had been moving on pure adrenaline, but now that I had a moment to think, I wondered, how did she end up in such a state? Does Ryan know something about this? If so, why hasn't he helped her? My mind was in complete turmoil. My heart was still racing. Then, a nurse came out of the and called out to me. She said my daughter-in-law wanted to talk to me. Still not fully grasping the situation, I followed the nurse, where my daughter-in-law lay on a bed, hooked up to and for, staring at me. Her eyes were filled with tears. "You must have been so scared. You did so well to endure it." I held her hand. She squeezed my hand tightly in return. Her strong hand was warm and full of life. She had made it. For a while, we both cried. I'm so relieved that she's safe. Finally, as she calmed down, Emily began to speak, revealing the truth. What she told me left me speechless. A cold chill ran through my body, and I was hit by a terrifying sense of weakness that made it hard to stay in my seat. No way. The terrifying story she told me was this. The ones who did this to my daughter-in-law, shockingly, was my son and the salon owner, Ryan's boss. My son had been introduced to gambling by his boss around the time he bought the house, and he quickly became addicted. My daughter-in-law wasn't happy about it, but she reluctantly agreed as long as it stayed within his allowance, though her worries soon proved justified. My son became so addicted that his allowance wasn't enough, and he started dipping into their savings and part of the money I had given them as a housewarming gift. When Emily realized what was happening, she quickly put the remaining money into her own account and tried to convince him to stop. But Ryan is already deeply addicted to the thrill of winning big, and his greed grew. He even started sneaking out with his boss during work hours to gamble. You can make a ton of money in no time. Working day by day is just stupid. He kept his constant losses a secret, telling her he'd make it all back someday, and gambled day and night. When my daughter-in-law couldn't take it anymore and confronted him, he began verbally abusing her. Fearing for her safety, she tried to take out her phone to call me for help, but you took my money. Don't you dare do anything without my permission. He snatched the phone from her and threw it to the floor. As she panicked over her broken phone, my son called his boss and invited him to the house. When his boss arrived, the two of them ransacked the house, looking for her bank books, debit, and credit cards and eventually tying her up when she resisted. Stop it or I'll call the police. That one statement changed the look on both my son's and his boss's faces. They exchanged a sinister smile, and his boss nodded toward the bathroom. They carried Emily to the bathroom and tied her hands to the towel holder, locking her inside. Hearing this, the blood drained from my face. Then they threatened her with a knife when she struggled more. Try anything, and I'll make sure you never speak again for the rest of your life. With that, Ryan tore her clothes to shreds and stripped her completely naked. Frozen in fear and unable to speak, Emily watched as Ryan and his boss left the house. This happened Friday night. You've been in the bathroom all by yourself since then. My voice trembled as I spoke. My daughter-in-law quietly nodded. I'm so glad the bathroom window was slightly open. Thank you for saving me. She gave me a weak smile as she spoke. I had always assumed they were living happily together. She must have been lying about her happiness to keep me from worrying. Emily, I'm so sorry, so sorry. I repeated those words like I was possessed. This was the moment my love for my son turned into hatred. This is not something a human being would do. No one, no matter who they are, should ever be forgiven for something like this. Filled with a resolve for revenge, I calmly called my son. Ryan, where are you right now? I struggled to suppress my rage and spoke to him in my usual tone. Where else? I'm at work, of course. In the background of my son's nonchalant response, I could hear loud music, a lot of noise from other people and continuous announcements on a loudspeaker. It sounded like he's in a casino. I stopped by the salon today, but you weren't there, Ryan. There was a brief silence. Oh, I'm not at the salon today. I'm on a business trip. I could tell from his voice that he was desperately trying to lie. Do you think I don't know? What business trip? I know you're at the casino with your boss. And do you have any idea what happened to Emily? My words left him silent once again. Tomorrow, be at the salon with your boss. Wait for me in the staff lounge, where the customers can't see you. I'll make sure your boss knows what will happen if you don't show up. With that, I abruptly hung up the phone. Next, we began the process of canceling Emily's credit and debit cards. The next day, I arrived at the salon where my son worked at the agreed-upon time and headed to the staff lounge. I entered the room to find my son and his boss sitting upright, waiting for me. You know why you're both here, make a guess? When the salon owner saw me, he suddenly went pale and went down to his knees. I'm so sorry, ma'am. It was just a momentary lapse of judgment. We never meant to hurt Emily. A momentary lapse of judgment. How dare he say such a thing so lightly? What lapse of judgment? What do you think is going to happen to her? You made a promise to me, didn't you? You said you'd focus on running the salon and mentor my son into a responsible hairstylist. I couldn't contain the rage that kept welling up inside of me. It's no wonder because the owner and I had made a promise in the past. A few years ago, this salon was struggling with low customer turnout and was on the brink of closing down. The owner begged me for help, so I stepped in. I gave him our top products at a discount and sent one of my best stylists to teach them advanced techniques. The salon quickly became famous as a place that could dramatically improve hair quality, and soon clients were flocking in from all over. It was even featured in the media. Thanks to me, the owner not only saved the business but became renowned as an in-demand stylist. He expressed his gratitude to me and promised to stay humble, treat each client with care, and run the salon responsibly. He also vowed to pass on this spirit to my son and train him to become a great stylist. But human beings are often driven by their ego. The owner grew complacent as sales kept rising without any real effort, and he gradually forgot his promise, choosing an easier path. He left the day-to-day operation to his staff and spent most of his time at different casinos. Eventually, he even lied about styling seminars and even took my son with him to different casinos. I deeply regret betraying your expectations. I am truly sorry. The owner still on his knees, repeatedly apologizing to me. I will never do something like this again. I'll change my ways and return to my original principles, focusing on running the business properly. My son, sitting beside him, silent and couldn't look me in the eye. What exactly is this man expecting me to say and do? I understand. Please focus on the business from now on? Is he expecting me to just brush off what they did? What they did is far too serious to be dismissed as a mere lapse in judgment. My daughter-in-law's life was put in danger. This is a serious crime. If it was just about both of you ruining your lives with gambling, I wouldn't really care. What angers me is that you put Emily through hell and took her money. Don't tell me you spent all the money I gave you. The two of them kept their heads down and stayed silent. This is a crime. I have plenty of evidence. If I report this to the police, you'll both be in jail today. Then I informed the salon owner that I would be stopping all business with him. The owner quickly looked up, panicking at the thought of losing my company's products that he relied on to market his salon. Please, I beg you. I have so many employees depending on me. If the salon goes under, I won't be able to support them. If he truly cared about his employees, why was he leaving the salon unattended to gamble? His plea had no credibility, and I felt no sympathy for him. Frustrated by my refusal, the owner suddenly began to shake, his face pale. Then, just as quickly, the color rushed back into his face, turning it bright red with fury. Just because you helped me back then, don't get too ahead of yourself. Yeah, you helped me save my business, but don't you dare act high and mighty. Don't you dare telling me what I should do, you're younger than me. Shocked by his sudden outburst, I listened as the owner continued his tirade. Do you have any idea how much my pride has been wounded by having to listen to a younger person who's also a woman? That's why I wanted to use more of your money. So it turns out this owner had found out about the money I gave Ryan and Emily and used it to manipulate my son. What a selfish, disgusting man. Having abandoned all sentiment for the salon owner, I said one last thing before leaving. It'll be interesting to see what happens now that we're no longer doing business together. From here on out, we go our separate ways. Good luck. I grabbed my son by the collar and left the salon. Behind me, I could hear the owner shouting like a madman, but I didn't look back as I kept walking, taking my son back to the house where his wife was waiting. Don't you feel at least a bit guilty for what you've done? I had expected an apology, but as soon as my son saw his wife, he started verbally attacking her like a rabid dog. You're the one who keeps messing everything up. Spreading lies. Stop butting into my business. I can't breathe around you. I was just doing a little gambling to relax, and you won't stop nagging. My daughter-in-law's face stiffened as my son lashed out, his words so intense they felt dangerous. You froze the debit card, and I couldn't withdraw any money. How much more fun are you going to take away from me? You bitch. Do you want to go through the same thing again? His words made Emily shake with fear, and she covered her ears and started crying. That's enough. You worthless man. Do you hear yourself? Do you understand the horror of what you did when you say that? What is wrong with you? My son glared at me with sharp eyes as I stood in front of him. Do you even know what would have happened if Emily had stayed in that state for a few more days? Saying sorry won't fix this. At that, my son suddenly exploded, shouting nonsensical words in a fit of rage. It was just like during his rebellious teenage years. The joy of seeing my son grow up, everything was just a hoax. He was only pretending to be an adult, deep down, nothing had changed since then. Stunned by my son's behavior, I held my daughter-in-law close, trying desperately to protect her. Shut up, you old hag. Why are you taking her side? You're my mother. Besides, it was just a game. She should have gotten out of that by herself. The marks from the ropes were still visible on her wrists and ankles. Calling it a game was a pathetic excuse. Then, suddenly, my daughter-in-law stood up. The woman who had been trembling moments ago now glared at him with a fierce gaze, opening her mouth slowly to speak. My son's selfish excuses and attitude towards me must have pushed her past her breaking point. I have nothing more to say. I've already prepared the divorce papers. All that's left is for you to do is to sign. And this is clearly domestic violence. I'm going to file a case against you. My son, who thought he could control his wife by shouting and using force, was clearly taken aback by her words. Hey, what are you talking about? Divorce? You're kidding, right? File a case? This is just a misunderstanding. Mom, say something to her. Up until now, my son hasn't changed his habit of looking to me for help when he's in trouble. But I had no intention of helping him or stopping his wife from what she wants to do. After all, it was I who suggested the divorce and file a complaint. You were far too immature to get married. Divorce is the right choice. And from now on, your place won't be here. You're going to a rehab center for gambling addiction, and you'll start over from scratch. My unexpected words caused Ryan to panic, and he started crying like a child. I had already looked up a rehab center online and arranged for his admission. What do you mean, rehab center? I'm not sick. That owner set me up. There's no way I'm going to a place like that. My son wailed like a child throwing a tantrum, but it was too late to change anything. Just then, the doorbell rang at the perfect moment. It looks like it's time. They're here for you. Your admission is already arranged, and I've taken care of the paperwork. All you have to do is go. My son, kicking and screaming, was forcibly put into the car by the rehab center staff and taken away. Thank you, Mom. My daughter-in-law, who had been holding it together, suddenly broke down in tears, as though a tightly wound cord had finally loosened. She must been terrified. I held her tightly in my arms. And so, our battle came to an end. With my son gone, my daughter-in-law seemed to return to a peaceful life. But the emotional scars she carried were deep, and it was hard for her to return to normal life. She was still terrified of going to the bathroom, plagued by nightmares every night, and had lost her appetite. It was clear that it would take time for her to fully recover. It was painful just to see her like that. So, I introduced her to a professional I knew, and she successfully received compensation from my son and finalized the divorce. My son, having spent most of the money on gambling, resisted violently when forced to pay from his dwindling savings. But he was restrained by the rehab staff and is now locked in a room with only a small, dimly lit window. They likely decided that stabilizing his mental state was a priority before treating his gambling addiction. My son and the owner faced further investigation due to my daughter-in-law's complaint and were eventually arrested for assault. Unfortunately, the owner was given the chance for bail. The marks left on her wrists and ankles, as well as the deep emotional scars from their actions and insults, were strong evidence leading to their punishment. The salon owner, now with a criminal record, is on the verge of losing everything. Having ordered a large amount of hair care products, he couldn't pay off the debt he owed to my company and was left in despair. On top of that, with my company canceling the contract, his salon had to remove our brand from its signage, further losing customer trust and media attention. Eventually, his business went bankrupt. Meanwhile, I had hoped my son would become a better person in rehab, but sadly, he chose not to change and still frequently sneaks out at night to meet the salon owner. They still continue to go to different casinos together. But the staff at the rehab center finally learned what they were doing. During the last time he sneaked out, Ryan was quickly caught and dragged back to the facility. After witnessing him repeat this behavior without any signs of improvement, I finally decided to cut him off for good. Up until now, I had always helped him out of a sense of parental responsibility, but he's an adult now. He needs to face his struggles and rebuild his life on his own. Since I stopped paying for the rehab, my son was let go of the rehab. He was thrilled, thinking he was finally free. Little did he know that his real struggles were just beginning. After leaving the facility, my son tried his luck at the races, using his remaining money, but he lost it all and is now drowning in debt, hounded by collectors every day. My son came to visit my company once. He was filthy, as though he hadn't taken a bath since leaving the rehab center. His clothes were in tatters, and his front teeth were missing. He looked far older and more worn out than someone in his 20s should. "Mom, please lend me some money." The hand my son stretched toward me was filthy, his nails long and unkempt. The stench made me wrinkle my nose in disgust. "Leave now. If you plan on staying here any longer, I'll call the police." Upon hearing this, my son hurriedly left. I guess the mention of the police scared him because of his criminal record. That was the last time I saw Ryan. I don't know where he is or what he's doing now. I haven't heard any rumors about him either. Speaking of rumors, I heard that the former salon owner was caught in a raid at an illegal gambling house and is in trouble with the police again. He hasn't learned his lesson either. Mother, the new place is small, but it's just right for me living alone. Thank you for helping me find it. This apartment allows pets, so I'm thinking of getting a dog. Emily has been going to the professional counseling I recommended, and she's now fully recovered both mentally and physically. She sold the house she bought with my son and has started her life in a new apartment. She still treats me like a real mother, and I feel deeply sorry for all the pain my son caused her. From now on, I will support her in place of my son, and I hope she finds happiness again someday.